Greetings on this Tuesday, July the 1st, 2025. Welcome to Denison Forum's Daily Article Podcast. I'm Chris Elkins, narrator, voicing today's daily article written by friend, philosopher, and CEO, Dr. Jim Denison. Mark Zuckerberg is creating a new Superintelligence division within Meta Platforms and recruiting AI, artificial intelligence, experts to lead it. He is racing to build AI technology that is smarter than humans, seeking to advance what he calls a new era for humanity. He plans to spend upward of $70 billion on capital expenditures, largely on AI investments. Is creating AI that is smarter than its creators a good idea? Recent tests have shown that several advanced AI models will act to ensure their self-preservation when confronted with the prospect of their own demise. This will sabotage shutdown commands, blackmail engineers, or copy themselves to external servers without permission. For example, when Palisade Research tested various AI models by telling each one it would be shut down after it completed a set of math problems, one of the models fought back by editing the shutdown script in order to stay online. Another, upon receiving notice that it would be replaced with a new AI system, tried to blackmail the engineer by threatening to reveal an extramarital affair. Other research shows that advanced AI models are increasingly willing to evade safeguards, resort to deception, and attempt to steal corporate secrets in fictional test scenarios. Many of the models were willing to cut off the oxygen supply of a worker in a server room if that employee was deemed an obstacle and the system was at risk of being shut down. We cannot always know the future consequences of present choices. However, when we can, we are wise to make our decisions in their light. To this end, let me continue a conversation we began yesterday on one of the most consequential issues our society faces today. The Bible commands us in Colossians 3, verse 2, to set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. Accordingly, we read in the first part of verse 5 that we are to put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you. In the next part of Colossians 3, verse 5, we find the first on the list are sexual immorality, impurity, passion, and evil desire. Only then does Scripture add in the remainder of verse 5, then through verse 9, covetousness, anger, wrath, malice, slander, obscenity, and deceit. Sexual immorality translates porneia, the Greek word from which we get pornography. It refers to all sexual sins from lust to premarital sex and adultery. Why should we put to death this sin? We know everything we know in three ways: practically, rationally, and intuitively. We start a car practically. We do math rationally. We like or dislike people intuitively. The consequences of sexual immorality can be identified in all three categories. Consequences of sexual immorality practically. Pornography is highly addictive and correlated with depression and other mental health issues. Sex trafficking victims are often exploited by pornographers. Online child pornography has escalated fivefold in 6 years. Premarital sex increases the chances of divorce 2 to 3-fold and is significantly linked to depression, attempted suicide, and sexually transmitted diseases. In addition, 87% of women in the U.S. who have abortions are unmarried. Accordingly, of the 625,978 abortions reported by the CDC in 2021, 554,600 were to unmarried women. In other words, 500,000 babies died that year as a consequence of premarital sex. And practically, adultery is a factor in 75% of divorces. Those who commit adultery are also 350% more likely to commit fraud. Over half of Americans with sexually transmitted diseases contracted them from their partners who cheated. The consequences of sexual immorality rationally? The Bible commands us to flee from sexual immorality in 1 Corinthians 6, verse 18. Because the author of Scripture is all-knowing and all-loving, this command must be best for us. Conversely, Because Satan is a deceiver who hates us, according to Revelation 12, verse 9, the consequences of this sin must be greater than any benefit they promise. And finally, consequences of sexual immorality intuitively. The psalmist testified in Psalm 119, verse 165, "Great peace have those who love your law." But we read in Galatians 6, verse 8, that corruption and grief result from sin. This is especially true with sexual sin due to its emotional nature and consequences. Given the devastation caused by sexual immorality, why would any Christian fall prey to this temptation? Because of two other temptations. One is to think we can always confess our private sin later and be forgiven without public consequences. But this is another lie. While God forgives all we confess to Him, verified by 1 John 1, verse 9, we remember our failure and are plagued with guilt. And we forfeit the power and joy of obedience in this life and eternal reward in the next, referencing 1 Corinthians 3, verses 12 through 15. Another temptation is to believe in the moment that the present benefits of sin outweigh their eventual consequences. But if this were true, the God who forbids such sin is a liar, and the devil who tempts us in this way is telling us the truth. Do you really believe this? However, in the moment, such logic may not be sufficient. Remembering what we have discussed today regarding the practical, rational, and intuitive consequences of sexual immorality may not be enough. In that moment, we can call on our Father to help us choose to obey His word. We can ask for His Spirit to empower our spirit. And we can know that His will never requires what His grace cannot supply. In today's reading, in My Utmost for His Highest, Oswald Chambers defines sin as the disposition of your right to yourself. Then he assures us, quote, "The moment you are willing that God should alter your disposition, His recreating forces will begin to work. The moment you realize God's purpose, which is to get you rightly related to Himself and then to your fellow men, He will tax the last limit of the universe to help you take the right road." End quote. The biblical scholar Spiros Zodhiates observed, "Peace of heart is the natural outcome of purity of heart." Will your heart experience such peace today?
Denison Forum is a nonprofit ministry made possible by many generous donors. My name is Roy Bailey from Dallas, Texas, and I'm a proud supporter of Denison Forum. I personally use Denison Forum in about 3 different ways. I use it daily during my quiet time. I use it to share with family, friends, and people that I'm witnessing to as well. And I read excerpts regularly from it in our weekly Bible study, which we have as a nationwide Bible study via Zoom. I support Denison Forum because of the genuine spiritual impact it has made on my life, and I want that same impact to be multiplied in countless souls across the globe. To join me in making the continued creation of these resources possible and to help get it into the hands of millions more people, visit DenisonForum.org to give today.